Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to EnggAdda. So in this video, we are going to discuss how we can implement Cache in Spring Boot CRUD application. And the Cache we are going to use in this application is Hazelcast. There is a video on my channel where I have implemented the caffeine Cache in Spring Boot application. Here we are going to use the Hazelcast Cache. So first of all, what is Cache? So cache is a memory where we can store the data which is being accessed very frequently so that we can increase the speed of access and search. So this is the purpose of cache. Okay, so how we can implement the Hazelcast cache in Spring Boot application we are going to see in this video. So let's get started for that. So let me try to go to the IntelliJ, and here I have already developed one Spring Boot application which is a CRUD application, and this is a student management application where we have developed the four CRUD methods and four CRUD APIs. Okay, so here you can see the first API is a get API which is finding out all the student from the DB. Second is a get API which is finding out the student by ID. Third is the post API where we are inserting the student record into the DB. And fourth is the put API where we are updating the details of the particular student. And similarly, we are deleting the student by ID. So these are the APIs that we have implemented here, and this is working fine. Let me try to go to the entity and try to give you an overview. Okay, so here you can see we have created this student entity, and we have four fields: ID, first name, last name, and age. And student table is created in our database. Coming to the repository, this is the student repository. We are extending the JPA repository, and we are using the JPA provided method in our service simple. Here you can see, right? So this is the flow. If you don't know how to create the Spring Boot CRUD application, there is a video on my channel. You can go and watch it out. And finally, we are creating the student controller where we are implementing the APIs. Okay. And in the student service IMPL, we have implemented all the methods which we declare in the student service interface. So basically, these are the methods where we have covering the CRUD operations. And student controller is having the APIs for all the CRUD operations. Okay, so all the APIs are working fine. Let me try to rerun this application and try to hit couple of APIs and show you what all the details we have in the DB. And then after that, we'll try to implement the cache. Okay, so you can see our application is up on the port number 9000. Okay, so let me try to go to the application properties file and try to show you the configuration of the DB. So here you can see these are the DB configuration, and this is the database driver that we are using. We are using the MySQL DB. This is the URL for that, and our database name is my database. My username for the MySQL database is root, and this is the password. And these are some other configurations so that we can see the Hibernate query which is being fired when we are hitting the API. And this is the configuration for the port number. So we have made our application up on the port number 9000. The default port for the Spring Boot application or the Tomcat server is 8080. We change it to the 9000. So everything is working fine. Let me try to go to the Postman and try hitting the APIs. So let me try to go again to the controller. And here you can see the class level mapping is API student. And if you want to hit the get mapping, you need not to provide any additional mapping here. So let me try to go here. We are going to hit the get mapping, and this is the class level API. Just hit enter, and you can see we have three records. Uh, Student with the ID 6, 7, and 8. These are the names. Okay, so we only have the three records related to the student in our DB. Let me try to hit the second API, which is find student by ID. Let's say I'm going to find the student with the ID 6. and you can see we are able to get the student with ID 6 whose name is Arjun and last name is Reddy. Okay, so APIs are working fine. I will provide the GitHub link of this repository in the video description. So from thereafter you can go and clone this repository and locally you can make this up. Or if you want to develop the whole application side by side, then you can go and watch the other videos where I have explained how to develop the CRUD application. Okay, now in this video we are going to implement the uh, cache. Okay, so we are going to use the Hazelcast cache, right? So how you can use the Hazelcast? So for that we need to include one, I would say, Maven repository in our Spring Boot application. So let me try to go to the browser and try searching for the Hazelcast Maven repository. Okay, and then we'll try to include it in our pom.xml, and then we'll try to see how we can configure it. Okay, so here you can see these are the query which is being fired when we are hitting the API. So let me go to the application properties file. Here you can see because of this configuration you are able to see this. Okay, now let me go to the browser and try searching for the Hazelcast Maven dependency. Go to the Maven repository and let me try to use this one and just copy this dependency. Go to your IntelliJ and go to the pom.xml and go to the dependency and try to include this as well. So let me try to also brief you about the dependencies what we have in our application as of now. So we are using Lombok, we are using MySQL database, so that is why we are using the MySQL connector. This is application is a web application, and we are also using the JPA. So these four dependency I already have included in this application, and for the Hazelcast I'm including the Hazelcast from the Maven repository. Now let me try to run the Maven, and then it will download the dependency locally in your application, and then you can work with that. Okay, so I think it is, let me go to the Maven, rerun the Maven again. Yeah, it has downloaded the Hazelcast for us. Now how we can implement the caching? So where the caching is going to implement? So let's say I'm going to hit the get mapping API. Okay, so every time we are hitting this get mapping API, then what is the flow of this? So let me try to go to the postman. So let's say the client is hitting this get mapping API. Okay, so when you are hitting this, you are getting these records, right? But what is the flow? So let me go to the controller and try to show you. So whenever you are hitting the API from the postman, for the particular API, it is coming here. Okay, and with the help of a student service, it is going to the student service method which we have implemented in the student service IMPL class. Okay, and in IMPL class you can see we have this student repository, and with the help of student repository we are invoking this find all method which is provided by the JPA to find all the records from the DB. So it is going to the DB and finding all list of the student and then returning to you, and it is back returning to the service simple, sorry, it is back returning to the controller, you can see here, and that is what we are seeing in the postman. So this is the overall flow. So whenever you are going to hit the API, it is going to the service layer, and then it is going to the database layer and fetching out the records from the DB and then displaying you. So every time you are going to hit the API, it is going to the DB. As of now, we don't have much records, but let's say you have thousands of records. So every time you're hitting the API, it will go to the DB and fetch out the records from DB and then display you. But it is a very much complex process. So it will take lot of time to retrieve the records from the DB. So what we can do, we can implement the caching here, and we can store all those details, all those records which are retrieved from the DB for the first time, and then we can store them to the cache so that when we are going to hit the API second time, then those records are being fetched from the cache, not from the DB. Okay, so first time when we are going to hit the API, it is going to the DB, fetching out the records and storing it into the cache and then displaying us, so that when the second time we are going to hit the API, it is fetching the details from the cache, not from the DB, so that our time is reduced, our complexity is reduced. So this is the importance of the caching. So let me try to implement this. So first of all, what we need to do, we need to configure the caching. Okay, so how we can do that? So let me try to configure the cache at the controller level itself. So let's say there is a annotation called config cache or cache config, something like that. Yeah, cache config. And here you can provide the cache name as well. So let's say I'm providing the cache name as a students. Okay, so this is our cache name. Now let me try to do the caching for the get API. Okay, so how we can do that? So there is a method called cacheable. Okay, so the particular API you can do a cacheable. So let me try to uh, do the caching for the get product or get student by ID. So let me try to put the caching here. So let me try to uh, make this API cacheable. Okay, so there is an annotation called cacheable, and you need to provide the key on which you want to cache your record. So let's say I'm going to cache the record based upon the key as ID. Okay, and yeah, we are good. So this API or this method is being cached. So whenever you are going to fetch the record from the DB by the ID of the student, then it is going to the DB and then fetching out the record for the particular student and then retrieving you or showing you in the postman. But now we have enabled the caching for this particular method or particular API. Then what it will do? First time it will go to the DB, fetch the record and display you. And then it will store that record into the cache so that when you are coming back for the second time hitting the API, it will fetch out the record from the cache, not from the DB. So for that, to see the proof, we are just going to log something. Okay, so log info. Let's say fetching the student with ID this from DB. Okay, so the first time it is going to fetch from the DB and then after it will fetch from the cache. So yeah, so we are good now. What we did, we have enabled the caching for this particular class and we provided the cache name, and what we did, we make this API cacheable. Okay, and we have provided the key here, and this piece of code we are writing so that we can compare or we can see how the caching is implemented as a proof. Okay, now what we need to do, we need to enable the caching in our application. So how you can do that? So either you can create a separate config class where you can do the configuration, or you can go to the main class and there you can enable your caching. So let me go to the main class and let me try to enable the caching here. So you can use this annotation @ enable caching. Okay, now you're good. Now let me try to run this application and try to hit the API from the postman and try to see. So let me go to the controller, and this is the piece of code that we are logging. So the first time when we are hitting the API, this will log, and second time it will not log, because for the first time only it is going and fetching from the DB, and for the second time onwards it is fetching from the cache. So let me try to go to the postman, okay, and try hitting the API where we have implemented the caching. So we have implemented the caching on the API, which is get a student by ID. Okay, so let me try to fetch the student 6 and just send it. So you can see for the first time when we are fetching the student, it is taking the time 446 millisecond, and here you can see the record. So it is going to the DB, fetching the particular student and then displaying you. Now let me go to the IntelliJ, and here you can see in the log whatever thing we have logged, fetching the student with the ID from DB. You can see this is being logged here, because for the first time when we are hitting the API, it is going to the DB and fetching out the record. Now let me try to go to the postman and try hitting the same API again and again and see if the log is coming or not. So just hit enter. Now let me go to the IntelliJ, and here you can see in the logs we are not getting anything, right? Again you can hit, again hit. So you can try hitting multiple time and see. You cannot see this log again coming in the logs. So that means for the first time when we are hitting the API, it is going back to the DB, fetching out the record and then displaying you. That is why it is logging for the first time only, and then after it is retrieving the records from the cache, not from the DB. So that is why we are not able to see these logs again and again when we are hitting the API. So this is how you can provide the logging to the Spring Boot application. Now, one more important terms you have to keep in mind when we are going to implement the caching in your application. So let's say you have implemented the caching in your APIs. Let's say you have implemented the caching on the Get API. What about the others methods like put, delete? So you need to be more careful on the put and delete operations. So let's say you have implemented the caching on the Get API. So Get API is working fine. Now let's say you made some changes in your uh, student records. Okay. So let's say for the first time when you fetch the student 6, it is going to the DB and fetching out the record for the student 6 and storing it into the cache and then displaying you. So the second time you are going to hit the API, it is coming from the cache. Now let's say I want to make some changes into the student 6 records. Let's say I want to make the changes in the age. Let me go to the postman. So let's say I want to make the changes in the age. Now I have updated the same student by hitting the update API. Okay. And there we have not implemented the caching. So what it will do, it will go to the DB, update the API. It will go to the DB and update the student records. Let's say it made the student age to 26. Okay. And it won't be reflecting the same changes in your cache. Okay, because for the first time when you hit the get student by ID API, you fetch out the record for the student 6, let's say, and it is stored into the cache. And for the second time onwards, when you are going to hit the API, let's say get student by ID, you are fetching out the student 6 record. It is already stored into the cache. Okay, so it will not go to the DB. It will always display you the cached record. So whatever changes or whatever update you have made to the particular student which is being already cached, it is not going to reflect in the cache. So it is very much important to remember to memorize that when you are going to implement the cache, you implement the cache at the delete as well as the update label, because the delete is also same. Let's say you have cached the you have fetched the record for the student 6, okay, and it is being first time it is being going to the DB, being fetched, stored into the cache and being displayed, so that from the second time onwards when we are going to hit the API, it is coming from the cache. And in between, what you did, you deleted your student 6 from the DB, but it is being cached. So that is why when you are going to hit the API for the student 6, it will retrieve or it will show you the details of the student 6, even it is being deleted from the DB. So try to make your caching in such a way that your update as well as delete is in sync with the caching. So how you can do that? So there is a concept called cache put and cache evict. So cache put is used to sync the update operation with the caching, and cache evict is used to sync the caching operation with the delete. Okay, so let me try to show you those scenarios as well. So first of all, what we'll do, we'll try to show you the scenario where we are not implementing the caching at the put and delete label and how it is being reflecting. And after implementing the caching at the put and update label, how it is behaving. So let me try to show you those things as well. So let me try to go to the IntelliJ, and this is the put API, right? And as of now, what we did, we have fetched the record for the student 6 from the DB. It is being stored to the cache as well. So let me try to go to the postman and let me try to update the student 6 record into the DB. So let's say I just want to make the changes to its age, and let's say I just go to the body, go to raw text JSON, copy this piece of code, put it here. Okay, now let me try to make the ages 27. Okay, and we are running the put operation. So just hit enter, and now it is being updated into the DB. Okay, here you can see the age is updated, right? But in our cache, the age would still be 25. Let me try to show you that scenario. So just going to hit the get for the student 6, just hit enter. And here you can see the age is still coming 25 because it is not being updated to the cache. It is being updated to the database, but it is not reflecting into the cache. So how you can sync your cache as well as the DB? So for that we need to use this cache put annotation so that you can sync your put operation or update operation with the DB. Okay, so let me try to do that. So coming here, let me try to go to the IntelliJ, and at the put label we need to use a annotation called cache put. Okay, let me try to import this, and here again you have to provide the key. So let's say we are going to cache based upon the ID. Copy this piece of code, put it here, and just run the application. And this time we'll try to see if the cache is being synced with the database or not. So our application is up. Go to the postman, and for the first time when we are going to hit the get API, it will go to the DB, fetch out the record and store it into the cache and then display us. So for the first time, let me try to hit it. You can see the updated record from the DB is coming. Okay, and we are getting this 27. Next time onwards, we'll get the 27 is only. Okay, now let me try to make the changes. And let's say this time we are going to make the age as 28. Okay, send it. It is updated to 28. Now let me try to call the get API and see, earlier it was not showing the updated records, but now we have used the at the rate cache put annotations. So we made our cache as well as the database in sync for the update operation. So let me try to hit this, and this time you can see we are able to see the updated age. So everything is working fine for the update. Now coming to the delete, how you can make the delete in sync with the cache. So let me try to, first of all, let me try to show you the scenario where delete is not working properly without implementing the cache evict, and how it will work properly when you are going to use the cache evict. So right now what we are going to do, we have already fetched the record for the student 6. It is stored into the cache. Now we are going to delete this student 6 from the DB, but it is stored in the cache, so when we are going to hit the get API, it will show us the details, because delete is not in sync with the database, or you can say for the delete, cache and database is not in sync. So let me try to delete this, and you can see it is deleted. And let me try to go to the MySQL and try to show you that yes, it is deleted. So where is the IntelliJ? Let me try to go to the application properties, and my databases we are using. So come here, let me try to connect. So as of now, what we did, we have deleted the student 6 from the database, right? So that is what we are going to see. And let me try to go to the DB. Sorry, cancel this schema, and my database is what we are using as of now. So this is my database. Inside it we have the student table. Okay, let me try to go to the IntelliJ and try to show you which table we are using as of now. So we have this student table. Okay, so let me try to select all the student from the DB, from the table, sorry, student table. Just hit enter. You can see the student 6 is being deleted, right? Now let me try to go to the postman and try to hit the get API for the student 6. Because it is stored into the cache, it will try to give you the result. So just hit enter, and here you can see you are able to fetch the student 6. Even it is deleted from the database, you are still able to fetch the record for the student 6 because of the cache. So because cache and the database is not in sync with the delete operation, you are able to see this mismatch. So you need to be very much conscious while you're implementing the caching for the delete as well. So there is an annotation called at the rate cache evict. Using that, what you can do, you can make your delete operation in sync with the cache as well as the DB. So let me try to use that. So it is cache evict. Okay. Again, you have to provide the key. So I'm going to use the key as a ID. Now let me try to run the application. And this time we are going to fetch the student 7. It will being stored into the cache, and then we'll try to delete it from the DB and then see if it is being deleted from the cache as well or not. So go to the postman, and as of now we have only two records, right? Let me try to show you those things. So we have 7 and 8. Now let me try to fetch the student 7. So for the first time it will go to the DB, fetch it and store into the database. Sorry, store into the cache. So just hit enter. You can see we are able to fetch the student 7 record. Go to the IntelliJ, you can cross verify. Here you can see fetching the student from the fetching the student with the ID 7 from DB. Okay. Now if you will try to hit it again and again, it will not go to the DB. Okay. So we are good. Now let me try to delete this student 7 from the DB, and let's see if it is deleted from the cache as well or not. So go to the method, use the delete method, try deleting it. So it is being deleted from the database. Now let me try to go to the database and try to show you. You can see it is deleted. Go to the Postman and try hitting the Git API for the student 7. Just you can see it is not coming. So now our cache as well as the DB is in sync for the update delete operation as well. So just remember in your mind that when you are going to apply the cache in your application, try to make your update and delete in sync with the cache. Okay. So this is how you can implement the caching, and here we are using the Hazelcast cache in Spring Boot. Okay. So this is about the video, guys. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for more such content. Thanks.